up, guys? Gary with Diesel Fuel Network. So in this video, we're going to be working on the steering, getting the steering column set up again, and kind of took me a bit of trial and error to kind of figure out what I was doing. And warning right now, I'm not an expert welder, I'm not an expert fabricator. In fact, I pretty much suck, but I have fun, I make it work, I put it together, and it's going to hold up. So yeah, hope you enjoy this one. And another thing is, I missed a video on Wednesday, so today's Friday, it should be out tonight whenever you're seeing this, and there will be a video on Sunday. Again, I try to upload Wednesday and Sunday, but if I can't make usually I always try to get a video out Sunday. If I can't make the Wednesday, it might be on a Friday or a Thursday. I'm still trying to nail that schedule down, but anyway, hope you enjoyed this one. Here we go. Got the new steering shaft. I just jammed her on there. So normally these lawnmower steering boxes, that normally is actually the steering column and goes straight on up. It has a steering wheel on it. So a long time ago, that's how I had set it up. I chopped it and I just squared it off, and the other universal joint that was on there had a square hole in it, so it was perfect. But it was still good. This has a big round splined hole. You can see I got it most of the way in there, enough to definitely grab that Allen lock set screw. It's on there. It's also square still, so I was able to really jam it. I had to hammer the hell out of it to get it on there. So in fact, you can basically see, you know, where I hammered on it. It ain't going nowhere. Now, of course, I just got to figure out the location of how I'm going to, mount it, utilizing that piece there. Probably behind, I don't know exactly where I'm going to end up putting it, because I'm not sure what kind of other, it doesn't do no real fore and aft movement, except for obviously there's a little bit of play in that. So that play is actually the gear. The whole thing kind of moves, because I think it's actually just worn out in there. But I do have the steering box off that other machine there. It's the same exact steering box, and it's in better shape. It's tighter. So I am going to end up swapping that, but for now, this worked before, so I'm going to just run it as it is. Yeah, so I'm just not sure as far as how much, when I put that bearing on there and set it up, I don't know if there's going to want to be like lateral movement, fore and aft. Lateral, fore and aft. I don't know which one's which one that. I don't want it pulling towards me or away from me, you know. Which I had that issue before when it came out of its mounting. But yeah. So now I just got to kind of line up and figure out where the angle is going to be, how far, what the distance is going to be, and the other thing I got to do is, so that's a double D shaft, which means, you know, as you can see, it's flat on two sides and round on the other. So it rides in that round bearing, but it can also be located and secured. And on this steering wheel, so this steering wheel, as you can see, it's just got a round hole. Well, this side has that, but that doesn't help me. So basically what I'm thinking is I'm just gonna try to grind out, maybe with a Dremel, that round hole so that it's square, and we can get that to locate and then just weld to it. Alright, well, I think I might have to cut that shorter. But first, I just want to get the steering wheel to go on this shaft so I can get a better idea. Because the thing is, it seems like it'll steer at that angle, which it kind of was at before. But it needs to be more like down here, and that's too steep of an angle. But if I cut that shorter, I can lower that U-joint down a little bit on there, and that'll give it a less of an angle. But what I'm going to do is, rather than use a Dremel, I think I'm just going to try to unibit this hole out to get it around that. It's got to go quite a bit, and that's real thick, but we'll see if it works. Let's see. Oh, like butter. Yeah, real smart. Let me get metal shavings. All over my seat that I'm trying to play with and sit in. Come on. That was dumb. I should have just hammered it a little bit better, but funny thing is, it's like almost perfect actually. Like it slips on there perfectly. But of course we're gonna weld it, so it's not that big a deal, but I was hoping to get a nice tight squeeze out of that. Oh well, we didn't get a nice tight squeeze out of it. But now, let me sit here and hit with D to where I want this thing, which will help me get a better idea as to where that shaft's going to end up. Because obviously I don't want it up here, which is about where it used to be, right? Actually, to be honest, it was like, I think it was way up here. Maybe not, I can't remember. But you gotta just think, like, picture just driving it. Because this seat, I got this seat about where I want it. Perfect, really. So, I didn't mount it yet, but it's just sitting on here, sitting on a piece of thing to kind of tilt it back. I'm just gotta think, do I want this, like, all the way out here? Because I do like having a 90-degree position on my arm. Just like when you're driving, so you may or may not know this, but there's a really specific way, a proper driving position, let's put it that way. And this goes for performance driving of a car. And that is mostly to do with your arms, because you want to have your arms, you don't want the steering wheel out like this. You want to be able to compromise your pedal positioning with your legs whilst trying to have the steering wheel in a way that your arms are at a 90 degree. And that is the ideal position for performance driving. You know, because I want it to be high, but I don't want it to be ridiculously high. I want it to look cool too, but I want it to drive the way I want it to drive. I'm trying to get my knees to, like, see, normally I would be probably more like that. And make sure you can get all your pedals without hitting the steering wheel. And we'll bring our knees up into place and kind of try to hold that. Try to get it relatively straight on there. Bring it down. Hope for the best. Ow, ow, ow. And it didn't even work. Ay, ay, ay. Tack it. Oh, man. Yeah, that's a tack. All right. Yeah, so I ended up cutting that down. And then I sliced a square edge off it. Now I'm just kind of grinding it down so it'll fit. And, you know, see, that's, oops, wrong side. So that's what they give you there. I mean, I don't know what else is available on eBay, but I just bought the first thing I saw, and it's splined on one end. The other end obviously is made specifically for the shaft they give you, but that'll work fine. You know, once it's jammed on there, it ain't going nowhere. Okie doke. Well, started tacking it on the front there, and then I realized, wait a minute, I'm an idiot. I should have cut that shorter so that way I could weld in there real good. But that's alright. I'll cut that. I'll get a real short cutoff wheel, one of my wasted cutoff wheels, and I'll try to cut that out of there. And I'll see if I can find the appropriate, if not the appropriate center cap, if not make something out of something to cover it. Don't know. But I'm pretty happy with that. That's fine. I've welded the crap out of that. The only problem I ran into, and I luckily there's metal going all through this wheel. You could see it in there. So the hub itself is grabbing all through here. I actually see the metal in there. You feel it. So that's what happened was it started melting, really melting inside there. And you can even see here, it was melting it. So I got a little concerned I was going to lose the hub, but it's actually, you know, it goes all through the spokes, the metal. So that'll be all right. I'll probably end up cutting that and maybe weld it a little bit more there. But to be honest, I don't even know if I'm going to weld it more because that is not going anywhere. Maybe you seen that, maybe you didn't. I got the steering started here, and so I ended up just, I'm gonna make a support across that, but I just wanted to get it in place, so I just stuck that there and tacked it to try to see if I was getting close to where I wanted. And I'm just gonna end up, obviously I'm just gonna leave that there and make a reinforcement off it, like I said. Only thing is, I've come to first of all, that's way too close to the bottom, so it's not helping me because I'm so far up here. But I don't know why I wasn't thinking when I did it. I literally wasn't thinking that that wasn't gonna work. But it's obviously, it's there, it's gonna stay, and I couldn't think of anything clean or right looking to actually do it up here. Now let me show you what I'm currently doing to fix this, or let me just show you this. So, you know, we got it in there, but there is all kinds of, it's way worse than it was before. There's not enough support up here. So I got this 3/4, ow, that's still hot. This is a 3/4 spacer, which is the same size as this, which was on the axle. So I just replaced it with some other spacers that are also for an axle. That's what they're actually for. Because I was thinking I was just going to take this and shove it right up against there with a washer and take all the slop out of it, and then have that on there, slipped on there, and basically welding off of the sides, just have like a triangle, you know, basically two pieces going to that side of it and to that side of it, and that would definitely help, or that would do it. So my other option is, and I really hate cutting things off and doing it all over again, because then, here's the thing, I currently have the steering column, like the wheel is perfectly where I want it. It is right where I want it, 100% perfect. It might look a little bit high, but it's actually much lower than it was before. And really, you only have so much room on these things. So with a 14-inch wheel, it's going to be a bit higher than you might expect it to be, considering I'm sitting really low now. But like I said, in the seating position, whether it's on the old seat or that seat, and I'm actually I'm leaning more towards this seat now. I like this seat. I think this seat's going to end up going on it. Either way, the steering wheel is perfectly positioned. And honestly, the hardest thing with any job like this, where you're trying to kind of make things from nothing and fabricate the positioning of things that are critical, I really, really hate going backwards and kind of having to do that part over again. So that's why I'm going to do what I think I just said I'm going to do. There we go. Beautiful. Minimal amount of movement. I think that's going to work fine. I don't think that little bit of movement's going to really transfer over. I'm going to try to get it a tiny bit tight. Good as that gets, right there. Alright, now. Keek cork on top. Not that it matters. That's how I set it up. So that's how it's going to be. Right. Into the bearing. And into the shaft. Just like that. Sometimes it's real hard to do something like this by yourself. But or at least not without the right equipment, because here I am, I'm going to move this into position, hold it there, and weld it. Basically, I have multiple, like 3-4 different pieces going on here that have to be in the right spot. Come on, baby. Stay there. we're on to something here. That looks correct. No mundo. We can always probably flex it a little bit if we have to. Oh boy, oh boy. Oh. Oi. Yeah, it's about, well, yeah, it's actually not bad. I mean, I'm feeling pretty good about that. That feels, I don't have the seat. The seat's hard to get comfortable because it's crooked, but yeah, it's about, like I said, maybe an inch higher than I liked it, but I like it. So, before that tack, actually did some pretty good tacks there. Those ain't going nowhere. Show you what I did here. So actually I had some square stuff that I was trying to make work. This stuff here I was gonna try to kind of go like right there, but it basically I wasn't liking it. Now that I'm looking at it, I kind of do like it, but regardless, I end up going into the old go-kart pile of stuff, and that actually is from my original go-kart frame, just as that seat is from my original go-kart that I had since I was 10 years old. So once I weld that all up, that'll kind of transition. It'll look fine. Spray with some paint, it won't look too bad. Even spot here, you know, get that baby there, cut that off, and once it's all said and done, we'll have some action here. And it actually worked really well. I was actually trying to get this pushed up against that, so now that washer is going to rattle. That's annoying. Well, actually, it doesn't matter. I can take that off. I'm an idiot. The whole steering column slide out, and I just take that washer off there. All right, after some trial and error, I got that one cut. Let it be known that for the most part, when I'm doing stuff like this, I don't measure anything. I more or less just eyeball it. I'll set it there. I'll look. Sometimes I'll hit it with a marker. Sometimes I'll just scrape it with the thing. This time, I started out by just kind of eyeballing it and cutting it. And then I noticed I had it a little bit off still. And I noticed that I hadn't cut these posts here. So I just went and I eyeballed it. I said, yeah, they're right about there. Cut it off. And it is perfect. Absolutely matches the other side perfectly. So, now I'm just going to go ahead and start welding that baby on up. So actually, I guess I should go ahead and grind some of the paint off of that. It's the thing I always forget to do. I always just forget that, you know, I'll go and I'll start making something, and then next thing you know, I'm welding it and I forgot to grind the paint off, and I'm sitting there going, why the hell can't I weld this? But I think that's about right there. That looks freaking brilliant. That looks wonderful. Yeah. Now, you know, the fitment's not perfect, but you could fill the Grand Canyon with a MIG welder and it'll hold forever, so I'm not too concerned about that. I might just grind that a little bit better just so it kind of fits and conforms to that a little bit better, but I mean, look at that. Is that freaking beautiful or what? Perfectly even. That's going to be amazing. It's going to work fine, and it's going to look okay too. Let's try to get that right about where she needs to be. Say right about there. It should work right there. I think that'll be fine. If I keep saying that, it'll definitely be good, so. Bring her all down. Yeah, that is attack, and that is attack.
pretty sure that is that thing. What is going on? Unless it's the steering box. Because a minute ago it was fine, I could have swore. Or is it the Siski thing? Oh man, I almost think it's the steering box. It doesn't like being jammed up like that, does it?
Well, I got it all kind of going. Then it seemed like it was binding up. It wasn't that. It ended up being that maybe it was slightly off when I welded it, where I had it a little bit too tight to one, cocked to one side, or one up or down, because then this, well, basically, long story short, I ended up just cutting it off and then repositioning and welding it. And again, it's just tacked. Those are just tacked in place. Everything's just kind of, nothing's really done yet with it, but it's like 50 times better than it ever was. It doesn't, there's like a tiny bit of play down there at that. It's from the steering box though. It's not, like there's a little bit of movement up in this column thing that I did, but it's allowed to move more because the steering input shaft has a little bit of movement to it. But I mean, and what is it? I think that's actually my thing here, the screeching. I'm gonna end up running grease in it when I actually put it together. But I mean, it's like power steering. It's working great. And the only time you're ever gonna go that far is in a slow speed maneuver anyway. And that's actually, oh, and then check this out. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it, but look at there's like, it's hard to tell. It looks worse. It looks like it's on camera, like there's play, but there's not. See that? See that wheel turning? I mean, there is almost no play in that. It's just that it's misunderstood because people say that, oh, look at all the play in the steering. Now, yeah, before the steering column was janky, and I didn't even have Heim joints in the video. I had just nothing. Like, I had like welded solid joints that were not the issue, were not the play in the steering. The play was to do with a little bit of play in the steering box. Well, I guess it was more or less everything. It was a little bit of play in the steering box combined with a little bit of play down there, and a lot of play going on in the steering column, which is now like rock solid. But I'm telling you that because this steering box has like, I don't even know how many turns lock to lock. Let's see. Well, basically is lock, so one. Okay, it's only like 1 1/4 lock to lock, but for a go-kart, like a go-kart steering is like nothing lock to lock, right? Like a go-kart will steer like probably like there and there. So it seems like there's play, but there's not. It's just that little bit of movement only does a little bit of the steering because it's a wider ratio steering. And you know, I wasn't really planning on doing that kind of shit. You know, kind of rigging things together. In fact, I was really looking forward to just having like new proper things on this steering. You know, the new universal joint, the new shaft, the new bearing, and then next thing I know, I'm taking a bunch of crap from the back and just like welding it together to make it work. More or less because I'm not going to sit around and just wait for parts. You know, maybe I'll regret it in a day or two if I get the parts, and then I'm like, well, crap, I'm not even done. I could have just waited. But I don't like sitting at idle. I don't like sitting still. I don't like sitting in traffic. I'd rather drive 20 miles out of the way just to keep moving. So I just same thing for this. Like, I don't want to just sit here and, yes, I could have moved on to the seat mount, and I could have moved on to the transmission mount and everything else, and the shifter. But when I started that, and I ended up to a point where I really didn't like what was happening, I just was on a mission to get it somewhere. And I wouldn't say it's definitely not finished, but it is pretty much what it's going to be. I just need to finish out welding that. You know, it is what it is. Like, it's gonna work. The steering bearing, I still ended up using that. You know, I did try just running without it. I cut it off, and then there's too much movement down in that steering input shaft. Really, I want to get something better for this, but I'm literally getting to my like my patience is running out with this thing. I wanted it to be a certain thing that it just is never going to be, but it's going to be a little bit cooler than it was. And it only cost me a minimal amount of money. I mean, literally the steering wheel was $10, and those wheels and tires were $150 altogether. So, and everything else, like everything else, is stuff I already owned, or stuff that was already on the tractor. You know, like stuff I already owned, like the metal was just stuff I already had for years. Not like I had it, like I bought it 6 months ago. I mean, I owned everything, like the hubs and all that. Like literally, like I said, the only thing, the steering shaft, the steering components, the wheel. So if we were to do a quick tally right now, just on what do I have into this kind of change that, you know, I wouldn't call it a rebuild or a revamp or anything. It's more or less just a couple of additions, different steering, lower the seat, put different wheels on it. Ultimately, we got 150 into the wheels and tires, $10 into the steering wheel, and I think I have around, I want to say it was like $40 or something for that steering shaft. So, okay, $200 is not nothing. I mean, $200 is some money. Got to be careful sometimes. You start spending money on things, you buy, oh, a little thing here, a little thing there. You know, I usually never add up what I do to things. I never add up parts, and there's a reason why, because I just realized I have $200 into a machine that I paid $175 for 10 years ago. So that's not necessarily the way you want to do it. But you know what? At the end of the day, if it provides, it's going to provide a hell of a lot more than $200 worth of fun, that's for sure. And the fact that I spent $175 on it 10 years ago is long done. Like, it doesn't matter anymore. But I don't know, I'm liking the way that's looking. I think the steering wheel is probably about right. I wanted it maybe about an inch lower than that, but it kind of ended up where it ended up. And it's comfortable when I sit where I'm going to sit, so I think that'll be good. It is lower than it was. It might not look that much lower, but if you go back and look at the old video, mainly even just look at I think it's the last video I did on it. You know, go ahead and look at the way it looks in the beginning of that video, sitting there idling, and it's way up there. It's a lot different. Because actually, if you look at it, even just looking at it right here, the steering column is below that point, and it used to be above that point. And then it was at about the same angle, though. So again, it's not that much lower, but it is where, and it's where I want it. I didn't really want it to be like perfectly straight or anything either. I like it at a bit of an angle. For this machine anyway. Alright, well, I guess that's going to do it for this one. I am very happy with how this came out. Obviously, the welds are not going to be pretty because, well, I said it in the beginning. I just suck at welding. But you know what it is? A couple things, and I'm going to make excuses because, frankly, excuses are not always excuses. Excuses are just an explanation of the course of events that lead to the result of something or other. One of the biggest things about making something, fabricating something, is fitment before you weld. So when you go and you fit up your part, if you have a really tight gap there, you're going to be able to make most likely get a really good weld. I didn't take the time to do that. I'm not patient enough. I just chop the piece, I get like a freaking half-inch gap, and I just start welding in the gap, and I mean, you know, it's like that's a legit weld right there. And there you go. You know, those are some legit welds. That's a bit uglier, filling in the gaps and what have you. It is ugly, but it's going to hold up. And you know what? If you don't like ugly welds, well, put it down in the comments and maybe give me some pointers on what I'm doing wrong. I don't know. So there we go. The only thing I'm having an issue with is I'm definitely going to have to change that steering box out for the other one I have, because I've gotten this, as far as I am concerned, perfected. There's like, basically the column itself, you know, has no play. There's no in and out play whatsoever. There's just like a tiny, tiny little jiggle maybe from that, but the problem is there's like, so I showed it in the other clip, having like no play in the steering, but I ran into an issue. So in order to have no play in the steering, I actually had a thicker washer right here to preload that shaft in there. Well, basically to preload the gear. But the problem was, at a certain point, like right there, that thicker washer was making contact with this retainer clip, and that was binding me up slightly. So I was not able to leave that thick washer. I put the original thin washer back on there. But what that means is I now have, see all that play? And it kind of had that before. It had that before, and it, you know, I could drive it fine like that. But I really was hoping that this time, with all this work, I would not have an inch of on-center play, which is, hopefully that other steering box will help. Now, I've driven actual cars, and well, trucks, I should say. I drew an old 72 Chevy that had way worse play than that on center. Well, maybe not way worse, but like probably another full inch more than that. But yeah, it definitely is annoying. I don't want that. So, like I said, that's it for this time. I'm gonna probably swap that box over. I still have to make the, front transmission mount, get the shifter figured out back on there, get the seat mounted. I mean, I have quite a few things to do still, so I'm going to work on that, and that'll be either the next video or the next video. I don't know, because I might be getting back to work on the truck a little bit. Nothing particularly special. I just have a couple ideas. I want to take the AFRC, the air fuel ratio control, and take it out of there. It's basically, that just holds fuel back off boost. Now it is adjustable, and I have adjusted it. And frankly, it probably won't do much for performance other than just it'll make more smoke off of boost, which, you know, some people like that, some people don't. More or less, I just want to try it because I have another pump with the proper block off plate for the AFRC, so that might be the next video, just messing around with this, deleting the AFRC, and I can turn the pump up like a tiny bit more, but for the most part it's basically maxed. I do have a line on a 435 horse pump. I'm just not sure I want to spend the money on it. So let me know down in the comments, if you're this far into the video, let me know in the comments if you would be interested in seeing some serious mods go on this truck. This thing can be a money pit. Like a vehicle like this, a big diesel, you know, you want to start making it quick and doing it. Maybe I put the pump on there and I blow the engine immediately. So I don't know if it's a good idea. I'd love to have this thing making some serious power, but I don't have the time or the money, more the money than anything, to go into end up screwing engines up and having to get another engine or anything like that. And I'm not going to build an engine. Not to mention I'd have to head stud it. I mean, there's so many, you really talk about rabbit holes. Doing a real vehicle like this is so much more of a jumping down rabbit hole situation than working on a little jalopy like this. But yeah. But yeah, that's going to be it for this time. Yeah, I guess that's it. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.